Welcome to Click AI Radio, where you'll learn the secrets to transforming your small to medium business. Grant has been helping businesses transform using technology for over 30 years. Advanced technologies like artificial intelligence have been available only to large companies and advanced technical teams. Grant will discuss how you can use to leverage AI and other technologies to grow your small to medium business. As a gift, Grant is offering his ebook, AI for Sales Growth, at clickairadio.com. Now, here's your host and biz tech geek, Grant Larsen.
All right, everybody, welcome. This is Grant Larsen on Click AI Radio. Welcome to another episode. I'm very excited today because I've got this person in my life, and he came into my life over 30 years ago. Who would this be? Who would be in my life over 30 years ago? Well, I'm happy to announce it's my son, Steven. Well, Mom and Dad, we call you Steven, right? I think your show name is Steve Jay Larson, right? Should I call you Steve or should I call you Steven?
Either is fine. You brought me into this world.
Yeah. All right. I might slip back into Steven mode now and then, okay? All right.
Good.
Okay, so Steve or Steven has been really successful in business. He's done a fantastic job starting up businesses and applying technology. And as I started to think about the work that I'm doing in AI and what it means to businesses, I thought, I got to go grab Steven and get his thoughts and his stories. Now, he's focused on solving a real specific problem for businesses. And so before we get into that and how the problem he's solving is actually addressed and is actually benefited by using AI, before we get there, I want to back up and give Steven a chance to introduce himself and talk about your origin story. So why don't we back up? I don't know. Let's see. Should we go back to when we brought you home from the hospital? I mean, how far back did we go?
I remember it clearly. Remember that?
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. No, as far as professional speaking goes, like the way this all started for me was, I feel like I'm saying this now to listeners, not you, because in high school, I was selling tons of stuff. I sold stuff all over the place. We grabbed golf balls from the golf course, clean them up, sell them right back to the golfers. And sold laser pointer pens, had to do a bunch of community service as a punishment for that in high school.
I remember that.
It's just lots of entrepreneurial drives that I didn't realize I was doing or had. In college, though, that's really when it first started, I would say actually started, and had a hard time feeding my own family for a bit, and asked you for cash.
I remember that.
And I said, I was getting a student loan, which good or bad is, well, it's another conversation, how easy it is to get student loans, but the money was on the way, and I said, hey, Dad, could you float us some cash? And you said, son, no. If I give you this money now, you will not exhaust the resources you didn't know you had.
I remember saying that. That was a painful discussion.
It was a
painful
moment
for me.
of
Painful for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a moment of, I saw immediately what you were doing, and I was like, okay. And it's basically, it's been shown that we don't do anything without a new environment, not necessarily new willpower. And so it put me in a unique spot where my back was against the wall in a way I would not have put it on my own. And you basically said, figure it out, kid, which is great. But it started my entrepreneurial hustle. And I did everything from real estate to diamonds to ebooks to other physical products to flipping stuff to going. It was literally about a year ago, went back and counted again. It was about 34 tries over 5 years.
I saw that on one of your podcasts. That was amazing.
It's crazy. Went and recounted all of them and the names of each one of them, when they happened, when they are, like why they, thankfully, they didn't work. Like, I'm so grateful to try to, didn't work or I'd be doing it, turn around and thank the journey, So I am professionally mostly known for my work at ClickFunnels. When I got hired to work there as a lead funnel builder over there, and did that for a few years, and then I was like, I still got this itch, Russell.
Yeah.
Told Russell Brunson, I was like, I gotta go, man. And he said,
that must have been a strange conversation, right?
Strange conversation, but he was extremely supportive, and which I think was rare and amazing of him. And so we're still good friends and still chat almost daily and still do work for him. Just most people don't know.
Right.
And it's yeah, my involvement at the One Phone Away Challenge has been fun. But basically what it showed me, I was already building successful sales funnels before I worked for him for a lot of other companies, but he certainly helped sharpen the saw,
Right.
and by all the things I was observing and things that the community was struggling with. And I decided to make an active stance in helping people make attractive offers, and launch them into specifically the internet. And so when I left, yeah, the first million took a little while, but came, and then the next one a lot faster, the next one a lot faster, and it's just been fascinating to see how it's blown up since then. So that's the professional nutshelling.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. What a journey. Now that journey's led you into some things that I think you've identified to me a couple times that maybe the market doesn't talk too much about, and that's campaigns. And can you talk about what those are? And I think there's different kinds of campaigns you've identified.
Yeah, absolutely. So every time I say campaign, well, actually, actually for a while in high school, my dream was to be a high school history teacher. And even into college, most people don't know that. I was like high school history teacher. That's what I want, American history specifically. And so I like history. Is when I saw their paycheck, I unmarried that dream. I got rid of that dream. I was like, I can do history otherwise. But I love studying marketing history. And you go back and you start looking to see, the internet became publicly available in 1991. You look previously before that, and all these marketers, these rich dead marketers, they had to go do things that we never have to go do because the internet's here. So I got really obsessed about a year and a half, 2 years ago of these models that guys without tech had to go through in order to still globally or nationally launch a physical product. Like that's amazing. And so what I started seeing was these patterns, and I started recognizing that in the very successful product launches without the internet, what they were doing was what I would call a campaign, although that word's kind of getting poisoned now, I'd say. In a campaign, I define it as being just a series of mini events that lead to a big one. So like guys like P.T. Barnum, like from the show Greatest Showman. Mm-hmm. He had this museum his entire career. He would go every time he had a new product or thing to show in his museum, he'd create these stories and these mini events, and he'd go to another city and create pressure and buzz and roll that pressure and buzz into another city and build it's coming, here comes the big unveiling of the new thing in my museum, and that rolls into the next thing. Now let's get the press involved. Boom, right? Oh. And that's like, but we don't do that now. People are like, I'm going to launch my product, and they send one email on the day it's available. No one's heard about it since then, and they're like, the internet's a scam. And you're like, you suck at campaigns. Like that's the reality. Like you don't know.
Yeah,
that's not
face the truth, right?
Yeah. So like campaigns today, like, well, I'm running Facebook campaigns. That's not a campaign. It can be part of one, but it's not a campaign in and of itself. And so I go in and I help basically companies launch their products online through creating these small pressure events that roll into a bigger, all quoting and citing a future release date, similar to how Hollywood releases a product or movie, with this increasing level of pressure towards the release date. So that's what I say a campaign is.
Okay. All right. And through this, as you focused on this, I think you've identified these different kinds of campaigns, right?
Yeah.
So you talk about, there's one in particular that caught my fancy because I think it lines up with some of the things that I've been doing in the AI space. And that's, I think, what you call an evergreen campaign. Is that right?
Yeah. So in my pursuit of looking to see what these campaigns were, and I'm trying to bring back kind of this dying art. Think about the internet. We have such free distribution, but we'll treat it terribly because no one knows how to leverage it anymore. I just call it an e-blast. Weakest form of campaign ever. Just blast it out there. Like, it's available. And you're like, I didn't know it was even coming. Anyway. But there's these certain campaign styles that I've noticed are really good for getting the rocket into space. But there's other kinds that are good for keeping it in orbit. Yeah. And more often than not, I've been noticing that when someone launches something on the internet, they will turn around and they'll build the rocket. It's an amazing offer, a great funnel. It's a good sales lead. It's good enough to do really well. It actually could go into space, but they don't put enough fuel in the thing. So then they go back like the rocket's terrible. It's like you put a quarter a tank of gas in something that needs a lot more to get out into orbit. It's like there's nothing wrong with your funnel. 80% of the time, I'd say that I don't really touch my offer after I launch it. That's not usually the issue. It's just that there's not enough noise, not enough buzz to get it out there. So I have a list of launch campaigns and evergreen campaigns. Get it in orbit and keep it in orbit. And that's kind of so with my funnel building process with my internal team. I've incorporated your AI stuff into our evergreen stuff because I'm terrible at the evergreen phase. I like to launch stuff. So I'm like, if we can use AI to show patterns in what it is that like that's great because anyway, yeah, that's kind of what happened.
That's what got me thinking about you is when I saw your powerful ability to take organizations and to help them launch. And I come from a world of, hey, the thing is launched. How do we keep it going, right? I mean,
right.
How do we keep the thing in space, right? And that's what led me into the AI world. And so here's the question I have. Now that COVID is hit and impacted all of us, right? And tons of small businesses are being certainly negatively impacted. How do we keep that thing launched, right? What impact has that had to the evergreen campaigns? Do you think it's possible to keep the small companies going in this? I mean, would AI help with something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two moves I'm encouraging everyone to go for right out of the gate. First, cut costs. I mean, I went through all my stuff. I was able to cut 13 grand a month in expenses that I didn't realize we didn't need to be spending, which means I had to sell less to keep just as much. I'm just more profitable now. So I was like, that's the first easy move. The second easy move is to, when you're creating an offer creation and the way we sell is really a function of value. It's like, how valuable am I? So we have to ask the question then, like, well, what is value? We know what price is. We know what cost is. How do you define value? Because value is not really money, but it can be, but sometimes isn't. And you're like, well, so that was another one of the questions I started diving into a few years ago. And I went kind of deep with that and found out like value is usefulness. That's it. And it's not usefulness in the eyes of the creator. It's usefulness in the eyes of the user. And so again, first of all, cut costs. Second of all, become more useful to the marketplace. And then third, when you are figuring out how to keep those repeat sales going, I mean, things like AI is huge, showing all the patterns that our eye can't see. It's massive. Consistent content creation has been a big one for us. The way our ads have been working and using AI to show ads, how they're working with Facebook ads, massive. Just got that report from you on a product we'll relaunch and evergreen at the end of this week. I mean, so we're doing this. So everyone who's listening or watching right now, but it's been powerful. I think when it comes to evergreening stuff though, consistent content creation and consistent ways to find new veins of gold and having AI look at that, I think it's going to be one of the easiest things moving forward. I mean, you come from such a huge, big E entrepreneur world, and I come from very much the small E, and us small E entrepreneurs are like, look at all the resources that these big E companies have. Yeah. And it's something that's been on my mind for years now. I'm like, I make decisions based on how someone's belief patterns are, how they are, their stories, what it is that they've been telling themselves. And I'm trying to enter the conversation in their mind at a certain place. These big E entrepreneurs that you have access, they're just looking at data towers. They're not like, most of the time, they're just looking at data towers and huge spreadsheets, and they're letting data show which both is right, but I don't have access to. So I feel like, remember when you and I first started talking about this years ago, it's like, Dad, if I could turn around and get these big, massive data towers and have see the pattern, I could have the best of both skill sets. And I feel like that's the marriage that's happening.
So that conversation was very pivotal in my mind because, as you know, I've been working with large companies who have access to that. And you think about a guy like Jeff Bezos, right? And you think, what secrets is he getting and leveraging out of his data, right? Obviously, he's been doing an incredible job with it, right? And we all know the other big companies that do that, certainly Apple and Facebook and so forth. But that conversation made me start thinking, hey, I want to democratize AI. I want to take AI so it's no longer just in the grasp of these big data science teams and these big organizations. And I want to put this into the small to medium business world so that we can compete. I mean, I think that's a fabric of capitalism, right? It's a fabric of the capitalist pig, right?
Yes.
So I thought, wait, this is the right time and the right timing to do something like that. So quick question I have for you, and actually what came out of that conversation was the way the AI works, as you and I know, is to evergreen is that when you go apply it, and I know you're applying it right now in your organization. So when you apply it, what happens is you're going to change your history, right? Something will change because you're going to change your behavior, right? And then in a few months, guess what? You should take another look at the AI again because you've changed your data footprint, right, in the sand, basically, right? You got to turn and look back and say, okay, so we changed ourselves. What does the AI tell us now? And that's another key aspect of evergreening the business. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like, I mean, that's what you taught me too. It's like data is all historical because it happened in the past. And then you have to keep taking new stamps of the data because it changes the predictions and the patterns and what's going to happen. And so what we've been doing, so when I was leaving ClickFunnels, one of the final role that Russell was asking me to do was to help build an internal funnel agency. When I got there, it was literally just he and I. There wasn't a copywriter, a designer, we were doing everything. And then as we brought in a funnel guy, you know, another assistant guy or another copywriter, we had to finally actually build a process beyond, hey, what part are you on? All right, cool, I'll do this. You know what I mean? There was no system. And so we started building a system and I started documenting it and making these processes and systems for what it took to get a successful funnel out the door so that I wasn't just leaving him and he had to just hold this thing now.
Yeah.
Well, what that turned into and started developing into, and what it's now turned into 2.5 years later, is this 12-step process that designs, launches, and evergreens lucrative funnels. Well, just a little while ago, I was like, why aren't we in the launch phase, in the funnel building phase? We need to be setting up data capture systems that I can then send to Click AI so that it's there.
It's there.
When we get to step 12, which is evergreening, and then I can send it to Click AI, and then you go, hey, here's all the patterns and insights your naked eye can't see. And then we go back and we make the tweaks and the changes. And that's awesome because I hate the evergreen phase. And now I get computers looking at it.
And you know what's interesting is a lot of companies hate the evergreen phase. And so that's why looking for ways to automate it with things like AI takes some of the monotony out of it, right? Because otherwise you lose the creative edge because you end up just going into maintenance mode. Where's the fun in that, right? As humans, we love to create. And so I see the AI piece as a way to help us still explore the creative avenues in terms of evergreening our businesses.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. What in your mind are the biggest hurdles to small to medium companies leveraging AI to help them? What do you think would be the things that would get in the way of that?
Yeah, you know, especially when it comes to the small entrepreneur, they're thinking sale, because they gotta eat what they kill, you know, and since most of them are so new, they don't really have any evergreen selling systems. And so I've been in that phase too for a while. It's just like you're selling and launching and selling and launching. We recently went back and I started making a list of all of the projects that we had once launched that were very successful that we're not doing a thing with, that aren't selling because I'm not doing that last phase. It was like 15 projects. And I was like, that is literally millions of automated dollars I'll have to do nothing for, just sitting there. Why am I not? I was so mad. I was livid. I was like, darn you and your distaste for evergreen. So that's when I went back and started adding in those things to our funnel build process to tie into Click AI. And I think the danger and the challenge for small entrepreneurs will be not understanding how simple it is to simply, this is how, for everyone who's listening now, this is as simple as, data capture systems. Yeah, it's a zap to a Google Sheet. Right? That's it. There's nothing else. And it's just
secret's out.
That's it. And then I'm like, send to Click AI. It's not this grandiose thing. It is behind the scenes on you. It's super smart, very wizardry, but I think that because we hear data science, the small and the entrepreneur, data science, and all this stuff, it's going to be this massive, like, I got to go get a Harry Potter wand and get, you know what I mean?
I do.
But it can be simple.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. We were doing some stuff for Blake Newbar the other day, and he said the same thing. He's like, okay, so, all right, so what am I going to have to do? I said, send me your Excel file. I was like, that's it? I go, yeah, we got the rest. Yeah, he's like, oh, okay. And then what? It's like, well, then we'll tell you, changes to go put in place. He's like, okay, well, that's simpler than I thought. So, yeah, it's critical. Yeah, it's hard. Part of it's just in the head, right? So it sounds scary, AI, right? So you're like, oh gosh, this must be hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, I know we're out of time here. Really appreciate your time, Steve. I have just one other. Do you remember the last wrestling match we had when it was you and Kenneth and Jared and me, and we were wrestling on the floor in Colorado? And I got off the floor and I said, I'm done wrestling, you guys.
Yep.
Yeah. I went upstairs to Eileen and said, okay, I think that's the last time I try to wrestle those guys. They're kicking the crap out of me.
We're going hard.
Yeah. That's awesome. Steven, I know you're super busy. Just really appreciate your time coming here today and representing Capitalist Pig. I love the branding. Thanks for doing that. Any final comments?
No, it's fun to see. I do get asked frequently. They're like, okay, looking from where you are in the funnel world and all that stuff, and where do you see it happening? And I don't see a way where the marriage of AI and small e funnel tech can't happen, because it's already happened. I feel like it's something you have to jump on and find a solution for, similar to how email autoresponders are out, and now suddenly few people have heard of these SMTP providers. Now you can send email on your own. Now you can send like, oh, do you have one of those yet? Do you have one of those yet? I feel like that's what AI is going to be soon. It's like, do you have an AI provider? And this is like a, the pre-bubble. You can jump in and take advantage of.
Yeah. Exactly. Stephen, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate that. And everybody, thanks for listening today. And until next time, get some AI.
Thank you for joining Grant on Click AI Radio. Don't forget to subscribe and leave feedback. And remember to download your free ebook. Visit clickairadio.com now.